Everyone, we'll just get started because we have a lot of things to cover. We're going to talk about what's new in AutoCAD 2024. This also includes AutoCAD LT. So a little bit more about me for those of you who don't know who I am, or those of you that are new, and we're going to find out who's new, is that I have 36 years of more than 36 years, actually 37 this year, years of experience in AutoCAD across multiple industry segments. I'm currently one of our senior support specialists, so if you do have your information or your licenses through IMAGINiT and you do require technical support, most likely you're going to get me, as Paul Pfluger and a couple of you on the call already know. Do my best to get you taken care of. I currently teach I've taught AutoCAD as a certified instructor. I still teach today in the Boise office, Civil 3D, InfraWorks, Revit, AutoCAD, AutoCAD LT, pretty much anything they need me to do. I do have more than 15 years of CAD management experience. I have more than 8 years in the cruise ship building industry, 5 years of support for civil survey, landscape architecture before that, and I've done mechanical design, electrical, electromechanical, printed circuit board and schematics, architectural and acoustic, as well as doing equipment layout in industrial spaces. And I do have a bachelor's in business management and a master's in organizational management. Wow, that's a lot of things to talk about. So let's move on. So here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the new features inside of AutoCAD and AutoCAD LT, activity insights, smart blocks, which is both placement and replacement. And those of you that are really curious about AutoCAD LT, this was not in your initial sign up, but we're going to talk about Lisp support is now in AutoCAD LT. Woohoo! Well, mostly. There are some limitations, and I'll talk about those limitations specifically. And then we're going to talk about enhancements to the additional functionality that you got in either the last update for 23 or 22, where they've had some enhancements to Markup Assist. They've done some trace updates. They've done some improvements with Autodesk Docs, Autodesk Construction Cloud, BIM 360. Not significant, but a little bit. There were some Start tab updates, some File tab and Layout tab menu updates, just to make things a little more streamlined and a little less clunky. A new system variable called PDFSHX, and I will give you a good example of that. There have been some sheet set manager improvements for the web-based sheet set, not for the core sheet set that lives on your server, but we're talking about sheet set in the cloud or a sheet set that lives in either Autodesk Docs, BIM 360, Autodesk Construction Cloud. And I'm going to talk about the graphics engine enhancements, and then we go from there. So we're going to talk about activity insights right off the bat. So activity insights provide a quick visual log of past actions that you or others have performed in individual drawings. The activity insights track events, whether a drawing file is changed in some way. It can also track some events outside of AutoCAD, such as a drawing rename or copy, such as that's been done in Windows Explorer. And it can actually see that that's been done even if no one's using 24, because I'm going to talk a little bit more about how this works. When a drawing is opened, the past events performed in the drawing are read from Activity Insights database displayed chronologically. And then at the same time, the events are being written to the database as you work in the drawing, which keeps the contents of the palette current. Brian Haley, are Activity Insights available in the verticals such as Civil D3 or just Core AutoCAD? You probably missed my initial spiel. This is covering everything that comes from Core AutoCAD, but this will apply to all verticals as well because they're built off the AutoCAD Core engine. So anything I talk about here will also be available in things like Civil 3D. Now, big thing to know here is that not all events are captured verbosely. Some events will have details, some will only show an edit or save event occurred. And we'll talk more about that in a few slides. And do activity insights add much size to the files? Actually, no. And I'm going to talk about that in the next slide. So the events are logged when the activity insights, all events are logged even when the insights palette is closed. All events are displayed the next time the palette is open. There are two EXEs that control this behavior. So if I happen to open up Task Manager, So I just want to show you these two events right here are what's keeping live track of what's going on in the drawing while it's open. Once you've launched 24, these two will stay running and until you've rebooted your system. Okay, so I just want to show you those. Those are the two that I talk about right here, the AC Event Sync and ACQ mod. When you open up AutoCAD 24, these trigger and stay running. Changes are written to the Activity Insights event location specified in the Files tab of the Options dialog box. So the default is going to be on the local user's machine for themselves. And that actually looks something like this. All right, and it's app data local Autodesk Activity Insights. So this is all it is. There's a Parker DB, which is the database, and it's actually quite small. And then under events to post, there's usually nothing. Under common, these are all of the activity insights it's keeping track of, and this is just a little JSON file that are 1 and 2K. Okay, so that's basically it. So they don't add anything to the file size. They do add specifically to the directory that you're pointed to. Does the insights impact EDMS systems like ProjectWise or Ignite? It's probably not going to impact any EDMS systems because it lives outside of those, Mark. And well, we need to add those two files to our AV whitelist so they don't get flagged as keyloggers. I don't know the answer to that question, so that's something you're going to have to find out, but they are listed here in my slide right here, this AC Event Sync and ACQ mod. So if they do need to do that, does it keep activity insight in a file you can delete? Can you disable it if you don't need to use it? It runs all the time. I have not figured out how to disable it. There's no methods to do that. What happens when a drawing experiences a fatal error crash? Does it record that too? It doesn't record the crash, but it will record that you're done a recover or something like that. And what does this do for us? Well, as you saw from the shirt I was wearing, we'd have been fine if it weren't for those meddling programmers. So I believe this is the beginning of what is going to be more verbose information so that we can see what happened in a file, or we can see what's been done in a file so we have more granular control of things that have gone wrong. That's my guess, is this is the first attempt at it. So if you want your information to be logged on all files regardless of who works on it, then you need to change this path here to a shared location. And is this tied to the history option? No. Does it show who made the changes? Mostly Lexi, and that's what I'm going to talk about next. So these are what it actually is going to log. This is everything I've been able to figure out so far, is that it shows that it's been edited. And this is vague, but it means that something's been done and the file is saved, or it can mean that somebody just opened up the file and saved it. It will show a purge, it will show an audit or a recover event or both. It will show publish or plot. It shows them as the same event, and then it will show you where it plotted it to and the name of the PDF. It will show when you add or detach XREFs, images, things like that. It will show when you do a file save as, when you rename the file, or if the file's been moved. It will show you adding and removing a trace, and it will show unknown edits. So if I open up this drawing in 23, and I'm going to show you that in just a minute, and make a save, and I reopen the file in 24, it will show that there's an unknown edit with no name on it. And you simply hover over an item to see the details. So when you're in this palette here, you can also filter for events. So you can filter by all events. So these are the things that I've been able to discover so far, that it's been audited, detached, edited, recovered, published to PDF, purged, reference drawing, saved to a new name. Then saved to a new name or moved kind of show the same thing. You can also show, do you want to see all activity? Do you want to see just today's activity, the last 7 days, last 30 days, last 3 months, custom? And if there are multiple users who have used the file, you can either check all users or the individual user. So new commands, activity insight close, closes the palette, activity insight open, guess what? Opens the palette. And system variables, activity insight path specifies the path, activity insight state indicates whether or not the palette is open or closed, and activity insight viewed logging turns on or off the logging of viewed events. Okay, so now we're going to do a little demonstration because I know you all love that. So we're going to come into this file and we are going to go to manage. All right, where did I see that? That's here. Under the view tab, we go to activity insights and it's going to come up. It's accessing the database. So you can see that I started making changes on the 3rd, April 3rd. Right, so I purged, I saved to a new name. So it showed me that this is where it was. This is where it was originally done. This is where I did the save as to. This is where I attached a title block, right? I referenced a drawing. I edited, I audited, purged it, right? And I published to a PDF here. And then I also, well, this one was the published, this one was plotted. So I plotted and published, but it shows them as the same event. Edited, I detached the title block, I saved the file, I reattached the title block. And what I want to show you is this is where I created traces, this is where I deleted traces, this is where I did the file recovery. Unknown edit. So I opened this in 23, I opened it, I saved the file, I made a change, and it comes up as unknown edit. So it does, and it will show who makes the changes. So since I've been the only one in this file, you'll see that I can see who's the unknown users are because I did that on April 6th and all of my events, or I can show all users. I can show what specific events I've come up with here. Does this activity create larger files? No. It is not going to create larger files because, again, all of this logging information is being saved to a separate area. Does activity work with BIM 360, ACC, and Vault? Can we set that as a location for a default, as a default for an event log? No, Kat, you're going to need to set that location to something that is local to everyone that lives outside the Vault. So usually a network drive in order to log those events, because you're not going to, that file is going to have multiple users trying to make changes to it if you're trying to check it in, check it out of Vault. Again, you could probably try and stash it up in the BIM 360 cloud. I would not recommend BIM 360 or ACC as your storage location. I would make sure that it's just a local network drive because it's going to make it easier for you to keep it clean. Is this included within e-transmit? This information here is not included in an e-transmit. Again, this information lives outside of your drawing. Outside of your drawing. I can't stress this enough. This information lives outside of your drawing. Denise, you do not have a history activity insights. Do we need to download it separately? No, it should be included in the core product. If it is only opened and saved in 2023 and no editing, does it still list it as an unknown edit? Yes, if you save it in 23, open it and save it, even if you make no changes, it will show an unknown edit. If I delete the DB, will it start over? Yes. Should this folder be cleaned out periodically? That's up to you, Daniel, on how often you feel that this folder is going to bloat based on the number of users. So it's running in the background outside of AutoCAD, but I assume it's using up RAM memory. No, not really. It's using very minimal footprint. I mean, these two things are using like 56 meg of memory. Okay, that's nothing in today's environment. It's not like it's chewing up half a gig of memory. It's 56 meg, and all it's doing is keeping track of what you're doing. If the insights file isn't on a network drive, but the drawing is, and more than one person works on it, does it cause any issues since the file locations for the history aren't on the same machines? Yes. If you do not have a common, you will only see the events on that file for when you edited it. Okay, it will look just like this. So if you open up the file that's on the network and you're not pointed to the same location, you will see unknown edits every time somebody else saves it, Jay. So you won't know what's been done, if they've published, if they've created trace. You'll just simply see that there's an unknown edit because there's no common history for both of those. And then you will see your edits because they will be local to your machine. See, I knew this was going to take a while. This one was going to open up a can of worms. Any issues with antivirus? Do we have to make exceptions for these EXEs? Again, I've had no issues doing it. I haven't seen anything. It depends on how aggressive you have your antivirus set up. And again, if we go back to the slide here, these were, this AC event sync exe and AC cube mod.exe would just need to be accepted. And I've listed those right here so you know exactly which two files they are. Anybody who needs the PDF of the slides when we're done, reach out to Lori. She will make sure that you get a copy of the PDF. All right, now we're going to move on. How do we change the save path? Okay, let's go back here real quick. So activity insights, it says update your location to share events. You click location, it asks me where you want to save this to. You can also go into options in files, and we should have an activity insights event location, and you'll see that I'm currently pointed to my own folder. Make everyone the same here. Does that folder access need to have write access for the users? Yes. If the folder is read-only, no one's going to get any updates. So they will have to have read-write access for that folder. What happens when the network folder for the activity insights event is not available? All right, if it is not available and you open up the drawing and you open up the activities insight, most likely you're not going to see any history or any information. And what you would probably see at that point is you would see something about today and edited or whenever that file was last saved. And you may tell you up here, because I haven't tested this yet, it may tell you up here that the activities or site is unavailable, and it may redirect you temporarily to a different storage location. It may request you to select a different storage location. I haven't tested that yet. Is that path drawing specific or registry entry? It's a registry entry because you're changing it inside of options. And Boris, I don't know if it's going to reset to default or keep the network path. Again, I haven't tested that theory because I didn't think anyone was going to ask that question, to be perfectly honest with you. So thanks for that, Boris. If you remove the path, will it stop making the log altogether? No, it most likely it will recreate the folder and do that. So it would track multiple projects in the same record set. Yes, if you all point to the same directory, every file that you open in 24 will all have common history stored in that location. Okay. So you could literally have this folder keeping track of every file that you have opened inside of your network, provided that everyone's pointed to the same place. You could also have different teams pointing to different locations. So if you're a multidiscipline firm that maybe you have civil, survey, things like that, you may want to have individual folders for that information. Now, again, you won't see any of this insight unless you actually open up the file that has activity recorded. So if I open up a file that nobody's opened yet, you're not going to see any information in here. If I open up this file and multiple people have been in it, I'll be able to see what's been done in the file. All right. And we can come back and talk more about this, but we still have a lot of things to cover and we are burning time. Is the log only readable inside CAD or is it a text file? Okay, we're gonna stop right here with this and we'll come back to it if we can. Is the location per document? It's per installation, Tim. Again, it's set in your AutoCAD options. It's a system variable. So whenever you set it, it's per CAD seat per machine. The log file is not readable. It's not a text file. It's a database. It's a DB file that's being tracked inside, and AutoCAD's the interface to read the DB. Okay, now let's move on because we have a lot of stuff to cover. So smart blocks placement. There's some new smart block functionality that can offer placement suggestions based on where you've placed a block before in that drawing. The block placement engine learns how existing block instances are placed in your drawing to infer the next placement of the same block. As you insert the block, the engine gives suggestions as you get close to something. So if you've already placed a chair block to the corner of a wall when inserting another instance of the same chair block, AutoCAD will find the corner of the wall when you get close to it, automatically position the chair, things like that. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I don't see this being used by 90% of the people probably on this call. If you're an interior designer and do a lot of office layout spaces, this is going to be your bread and butter. Other than that, I don't see a whole lot of places where we'd use this significantly. And I'll give you an example of this. So there's an auto placement controls whether or not placement suggestions are displayed as you insert the block, and placement switch indicates whether placement suggestions are displayed by default as you insert it. And in the block palette path, you can toggle this auto placement off for a single instance. And then when you toggle this off, place your block, it'll come back on for the second time you come back. So as part of placement, now we have replacement. It can replace specified block references by selecting from a palette of suggested blocks, i.e. your recent blocks. When you select block references to replace, the product suggests similar blocks for you to select from. Again, it goes back to your recent blocks. And it looks for things that are geometrically similar. And when the block references are replaced, the scale, rotation, and attribute values are maintained from the original block. So as long as you have the same tags in two different blocks, it will remember those attribute values and bring them over to the replacement. Okay, so we launch from the ribbon or via the command line, select the block you want to replace. If you have no recent blocks, you must select one or more because it's going to tell you it can't find something, or you can select an existing block in the drawing, and then you will be prompted to use an existing definition that's in the drawing or redefine the block or rename the block if the block exists in the drawing. How old can the blocks be? Perry, these blocks can be infinitely old. The block definition has not changed. Oh, I think the last time they had a significant information was when they added annotation to blocks, which would be the 2008. It's when they brought in annotation. Prior to 2008, though, it should still work. So it shouldn't matter. So new commands, be replace is the block replace command. Block replace with the minus sign is at the command prompt. Blocks data option displays the data collection consent dialog box. I usually check that off. Multi-line attributes, again, if the attribute is the same tag between both of them and they're both set up as multi-line attributes, then yes, it will bring the information across. Otherwise, it will make it a single line attribute. Do smart block works if they contain parts from verticals, i.e. MEP pipes and fittings? I don't believe so. But I haven't tested that because that hasn't been something I've had time to test, so I can't answer that question fully. If we do have a what's new in MEP, they may be able to answer that question, and I'm not sure, Lori, if there is one. And then block data collection controls whether the content data used for block replacement is sent to the data collection service. This is just Autodesk trying to get more information about it. So we'll do a quick demonstration. So again, we're going to come back here and I'm going to go to my insert and I'm going to insert, right? And I'm going to go insert, right? And I'm just going to click on desk and you'll see as I get close to this corner, it says, oh, do you want it there? If I come back to the other corner, it'll actually let me flip the desk over. If I come down closer to this corner, I can flip it this way, I can flip it this way. There's an instance where I can actually get the block to flip over on itself. There we go, right here. And again, this figures out what I'm thinking based on snap and coordinate geometry, and I just click. And I can do this again. Click. Right? No more O snaps. No more having to put our block in and rotate and do all of that. All right, and we can even go one further. So as I come here, see, remembers that orientation from the previous instance right here. And as I get it close to where it needs to be, come on. Come on, I know it can do it. Sometimes you got to finagle with it. It's a little temperamental right now, but it does work. So we can do that. Does it affect attribute sync if multiple copies of one block exist in the file? No. Attribute sync is unless you've edited those blocks individually, okay, so you've clicked on a block and you've done an individual edit on that block and only updated that block, then yes, that'll be the at sync issue. Right, so we've got that. You'll see how quickly this works, but again, I don't see a situation where we're going to use this a whole lot other than, furniture layouts. Can't say enough about that. Is there a variable to disable it altogether? Right. Right, auto placement and placement switch. Turn both those off. It seems more useful to activity insights. Well, I'm not going to argue that. It depends on your industry. Basically what you do. I can't see this being used a whole lot in the civil world. Right, Civil 3D, not a whole lot of use for this because we don't do a lot of repeatable things that are X number apart. Architects probably are going to love this. So again, it's just information. It's just some possibilities, right? So, and we can actually do now our, all right, and it is under home, modify. Where's my blocker place? Yeah. Right, and I'm going to replace the block. So I'm going to replace this one and this one. And it's going to pop up. These are that activity insights, and I'm going to replace desk with desk 2 for just those instances. I'm not going to redefine it. And it actually updated just those 2 instances. Okay, that's how easy block replace is. So I don't think that the block placement is going to be a big deal, but block replace will certainly be a big deal because now I can go in and replace individual instances of things that I have in here with other instances. So if I have this chair and I don't like this chair and I have another chair in here, I can do block replace for this one, and replace them with the new. So it's not redefined, just substituted correct, yes. So rather than have to erase these 2, then insert the correct one to these 2 positions, I'm basically changing these 2 in their place, and it's keeping all of the relative data. So if I had scaled this one down by 50%, it would have maintained the scaling when I swapped it. This one I find very useful. The placement, not so much. The replacement, definitely, is going to be far more useful as a tool. So I just wanted to let you guys know that one. All right, and wow, we're a little bit behind, but we're gonna get caught back up. Okay, so this one's a big one. Okay, this is the big elephant in the room, is that AutoCAD LT now supports Lisp. The LT for the products has always stood for lesser technology. Yes, block replace. Is there a difference? This year, Andre, you're using block replace this way because you're using a palette and previously defined blocks. And it will also bring across attributes and other information that the block replace did not in previous versions. Just wanted to make sure. So this ability, now that we've got some Lisp support in AutoCAD LT, because LT's always stood for lesser technology, which means that LT was missing certain functionality like loading of Lisp routines. Does block replace work for anonymous blocks? It does if the block definition is in there. As far as I've figured out, I could not get it to break. It should work for anonymous and unnamed as well. Because again, you're picking on which blocks you want to replace and which ones you're replacing them with. So those of you that don't know, Lisp is a Lisp programming language. It's easy to learn, powerful for automating tasks. No specialized programming tool or editor is required to create or modify Lisp. I'm getting there, Mark. Hold your horses. I'm getting there, Mark. Okay. So this is what it can do. An AutoLisp program can access built-in AutoCAD command system variables directly, modify or create objects directly in the drawing database, prompt the user for input at command prompt with dialog prompts using DCL or dialog control language. Yes, and Mark, Lisp does stand for lost in stupid parentheses, right? I don't know, Christopher, I have not tested nested blocks. I have not tested that yet. It's looking at the initial block definition of what you pick. So if you pick something that has nested blocks in it and you're replacing it with something that doesn't, it's going to strip out the nested blocks. And I'm not going to say anything, but you shouldn't really have nested blocks. That's a recipe for asking for a lot of trouble. Personal preference, right? And programs using Lisp can be stored in external files and loaded as necessary. So you got .lsp, .fas, and .vlx. Okay, does that answer your question, Mark? VLX. Okay, so so there are some known limitations. Okay, I can't stress this enough. There are known limitations or differences from generic AutoCAD. Right? So most VL star, VLA star, VLAX, and VLR functions are supported, but the use of third-party automation libraries is not supported. Okay? So here is a high-level summary of functions that are not supported. VLAX create, VLAX get or create objects, VLAX import type, VLA get interface object, and any VLA function related to creating or modifying any 3D solids, 3D surfaces, helixes, materials, multi-line objects, or any object that can only be created in full AutoCAD or verticals. You can't modify any 3D stuff. You can't modify surfaces, civil 3D surfaces. You can't modify MEP pipes. You can't modify architectural walls in LT this way. So entmake, entmakex, entmod functions only allow for the creation and modifications of objects supported in AutoCAD LT. Because AutoCAD LT does not support multi-line and multi-line styles, you can't use entmake, entmakex, or entmod to modify or create multi-line in LT because they're not supported. AutoLisp functions exposed by custom object ARX and managed.NET programs also cannot be used, and there are some ActiveX limitations. Because AutoCAD LT doesn't have profile, the preferences profile object doesn't work because AutoCAD LT doesn't have it. You also can't create meshes, surface, and solids, and while support is limited for the modifications. So will this work with a ref edit? Okay, Chris, we're going to come back to you if we have time regarding the block replace. Okay, I'll come back to you. right? So developing Lisp programs, so Visual Lisp integrated development environment. So the old IDE, VLIDE, VLisp commands are not available in AutoCAD LT. Okay, so you're going to have to do all of your Visual Lisp. Basically, you don't have the interface, so you're not going to have the VLIDE interface. You're not going to have the Visual Studio code. You can install it, you can execute it, but you can't do debugging inside of LT with it. It doesn't support that. And MNL files, those of you that use an MNL, they're not automatically loaded with CUIX files that have the same name, so you need to manually load those with the load function from another Lisp file, or type in appload and load them. And compiled Lisp files are supported in LT, but compiling Lisp files can only be done in AutoCAD for Windows only. So I'll give you a quick demonstration of that. Okay. Want you to know I'm in AutoCAD LT 2024. I have, let me go grab that Lisp file that I was going to run. And run and Lisp. So I'm just going to load a Lisp file here real quick. It's one of my favorites. It's one that I use all the time. All right, it's called fix block. So if I look at this block definition here is on this layer. I've got some DGN styles. I'll see that this chair is on iFurniture seat, should be red. This is on iFurniture free, should be purple. Okay. Right, now I can fix block. And now everything is set to, everything in the block definition and definitions is now set to color by layer, line type by layer, layer 0. Okay. List files can be loaded via script file for LT, correct. If you can, is there a document web page listing the overall LT differences? Paul, if you're looking for the what can and can't be done, everything that I'm talking about today can be done in LT. If you're talking about Lisp specifically, that's in the README or the help file for LT. If you're wanting something a little more, a little bigger, just let me know and I'll reach out to you, Paul. I know who you are. Well, I know that there is a web page where you can see AutoCAD versus AutoCAD LT, and actually I did a webinar on that, I think, a year and a half ago. Your fixed block Lisp acts like set by layer. It does, but it's actually more powerful than that. I can actually get around things like true colors and have it set to the index color, the ACI index color. It will actually do nested block definitions, where set by layer doesn't always do nested block definitions well. So that's that with AutoCAD LT. And again, I have view and I have my drawing history, which again is similar to the insights, but it's not here. And so LT does not have the insights. Okay. Now, let's see if we can get through the rest of these fairly easy. So that's that one. Right. We're going to move on. So now we're into the enhancements. So Markup Assist. So the previous AutoCAD release included Markup Import and Markup Assist, which used machine learning to identify markups, provide a way to view and insert drawing revisions with less manual effort. There have been some additional improvements to Markup Assist that make it easier to bring your markups into your drawing. Okay, so now you can have it update existing text. So if you have text in it, in your drawing, and then your markup has different text, you'll be able to highlight things and you can say update existing text, and it will actually grab the text from the markup and replace that in the drawing. You can append, replace, or strike through. If you do a strike through, you can replace the text and fade it. It recognizes text has been crossed out. It allows you to either erase or replace the text from a markup. So there's a lot of things you can do with markups now. Markups associated with PDF comments. So if you had a PDF with comments, you can now have it read those PDF comments from the Markup Assist. Yep, strike-throughs for as-builts. That's the only time I think this would be awesome, is strike-throughs for as-builts. And instruction text on markup. So if it will actually pick up certain things in your markup, such as move, copy, delete, or erase, and then we'll give you information. So I'm going to do, you can also fade your markup, selecting markups within a boundary. When you use any command to select prompts, things like that. So you've got your fade markup, fades individual markups so they're less visible on a trace. Nope, doesn't work with design review. Well, what do you mean by does it work with design review? Are you talking about markups from design review? Because if you're talking about those, yes, because it will read any file that you can bring in. So we go markup selection mode, comment, highlight, trace, and so I'll give you a quick demonstration on that. We are running out of time, so I'm going to have to go a little quicker. All right, so now we're going to get rid of this and these, and we'll erase those. And all right, let's go to our Markup Assist. Markup import, right? And that is PDF, JPEG, or JPG, JPEG, or PNG. So Anthony, with design review, you would have to export your design review or plot your design review changes, not as DWIFs, but you'd have to put them out as PDF, JPEG, or PNG. Does it work for paper space layouts? Yes. Does it work for Bluebeam? Well, is Bluebeam going to make a PDF? Then yes. So I have two things here. I have a markup that I did in Acrobat. Okay, so it's importing the markup. The important thing to understand with the machine learning is that if you do not have internet connection, it does not work. You have to be connected to the internet. Right, so you're going to see here that I have this, and I have some functionality where I can change which is which. I can change my fade effect. I can change my geometry in the trace. I can fade my background. So these are the fade stuff here. Right, so I brought that in. Now we do Markup Assist. All right, and we got to go trace to back. And this is Markup Assist. So you're going to see I have a comment here. Markup identified. It identified this comment. And if you'll hang on a second, we'll see what that comment looks like. All right, that's this little PDF comment I made right here. It said erase this wall. Does it work for changes in the 3D model? Well, again, you're dealing with 2D, so it may or may not give you the expected results you want. So I can insert this as a multi-leader. I can insert this as M text. I can make changes to this. Okay. Or I can close out of that. I can see this. And again, I get close to this. And I can insert as that. And I can come over here. And I see that this boundary that I drew is associated with this. And I can insert as Rev Cloud with the comment. And then when I close out of this, you're going to see that there's a information right here. You can bring the Rev Cloud in. And if we come in and do import markup, this time I'm going to markup, or what I'm going to bring in is this one that I literally just took over to the scanner. Markup work with Civil 3D, yes, but again, you may be dealing with Civil 3D objects, so it may not give you quite what you expect. Can this be done in paper space or model space only? Either. It's going to try and match up and give you what you want. My suggestion is, even if you printed in paper space, you may want to check model space, because that information, you may have to make the viewport active to erase something out. All right, so it's working on bringing that import in. All right, come on, there we go. So it's telling me here that this is, right? And now when I come back to here, I know there's a way to get this to trigger. Let's close this. I had this working earlier where it would actually pick this up. Right, let's turn this to the back. Got to be traced to back. So you're going to see this. It says, all right, markup identified as an instruction. Now it's going to give me my AutoCAD erase command, right? And I can erase that information. All right, Sean, you missed the import of the file. Does it scale and find the item in model space? Yes, what it's going to do when you bring in the import is it's going to do its best to figure out where in the geometry everything lines up correctly. And usually we'll give you a preview to make sure it's correct, especially from a scan. Once you're okay with that, it will do what you, then you get this information. But understand that sometimes this doesn't come in exactly where you want, and you may need to finagle with it. But yes, it should bring everything in, and it should auto rotate and do whatever it needs to. Okay, so that's our Markup Assist trace update. So the trace environment continues to improve and now includes copy from trace command and new settings. So how many of you have dealt with trace objects or tracing, right? As I dated myself last time and said, you know, it's just like the old onion skin that we used to have years ago, that some of us might still have rolls in our closet with our drafting utensils and things like that that we may have saved. Okay, so we turn on our traces, right? We're going to open up a trace, right? So I have different traces, and actually, let's go to my trace. If I remember right, it's up here, right? It's been a while since I've had to go look for this. There it is, trace palette open. Right, so I have the two traces. So both of those that I brought in today, when I did the Markup Assist, come in as traces. So if I go to this one, right, here's my trace. So I put a block around here and I said, make this smaller, right? And I've got some information in here. So at this point, I can go Markup Assist. And we switch to trace back. And I can do things like I can grab this information and I can right mouse click. Or what can I do with this information, right? We've got information in here, trace contribution. And I know there's a way for our trace contribution that we can have it. What is that? That's copy to, right? Copy from trace. Basically allows me to copy stuff while trace is open with trace back on, start the copy from trace command, select the objects, press enter, the objects remain in the trace and then are copied into the drawing. Can Markup Assist bring in handwritten text as mtext? Yes, Daniel, it can do that. So again, trace geometry, when trace front is on, geometry in the drawing is affected. When trace back is on, geometry in the trace is effective. Geometry in the trace slider moves this. Drawing background when the digital markup is active controls transparency. So really, they're just some enhancements. Really, the only thing is if you're already using trace, which I covered in last year's What's New in 2023, the only thing that they've added is now that you can copy from a trace out of the trace into your drawing. All right. Yeah, we are burning time. I got 7 minutes to get through the rest of this, so let me see what I can do here. We might go a little over, Lori. The following improvements have been made to Autodesk Docs. Improved support and performance when viewing large files on Autodesk Docs. Improved desktop connector, resulting in improved performance displaying drawings in the Start tab and opening drawings from Autodesk Docs. improve navigation on the Start tab, and when accessing files from Docs, make sure to use the latest desktop connector. They have finally made some changes with the latest version of 16 that don't crater things like Civil 3D. There's still some limitations, but it's gotten better for those of you that use it. Now we're going to talk about some Start tab updates. So the recent drawing list uses smaller thumbnails, yay, right? So if we come over here to our Start tab, I'm going to kill this real quick, kill this. We come to our Start tab. These are not the giant icons that we are used to. They are much smaller icons. And you're going to see that we have our list view, and we have this. And you can now sort these by last opened or named. You can also search. And if you were in this view, you have some settings here that you can show name, file, open. You can also say file type last open. So these are my displayed columns. I can change different things in here, whether or not they're pinned. Okay, here's the big one that I was talking about with Docs is if I go to my Autodesk projects, now mind you, my desktop connector is open and live. What I want you to see is that my different hubs show up here. So if I had multiple hubs, I have one click here and I can see what projects I'm part of for each one of these. Yes, search only works in recent drawings, Perry. So it's the recent drawings that you've opened, and it keeps a lot more information now than it did. So I can come in here and I can see this information, right? And I know I don't have anything in this project, but this one I have here. So all my information is here. I can see what versions, I can see who's got it open and locked by, so that there's been some enhancements in here in the Start tab. So I kind of like this. How many of you have ever noticed that if you hover over new, it's going to tell you what template you're using? That's pretty cool. I like that. So I know what template it is. When I click the drop down, it will show me usually the current template that it's set to plus the last 2 or 3 recents if I've been in and out of multiple templates. All right, so that's the Start tab, right? We can see more information here. Now we're going to talk about File tab and Layout tab menus, right? Let me cover these real quick. So you'll notice that I now have 3 bars over here. If I come here, I can see this is the drawing I have open, and I can go to either model or layout. I can start a new drawing from here. I can go new, open, save all, close all from these 3 bars here. If I'm in a drawing that has paper space tab, I've got the same 3 bars down here that I can create a new layout from template, page setup manager, all layouts, dock above, dock inline, and I can actually switch from model to the layout tab from here rather than clicking down here. So if you have a large number of tabs in your drawing and you have little squares here that says you have a lot, then you need to come in here and you will see the full list. Yep, no need to right mouse click anymore to access those. It's a single left click here to get the basics. All right, File tab, Layout tab. Here's the big one, PDFSHX. How many of you have struggled with PDFSHX and know that 1 is still the default? 0, basically it creates a bunch of stuff that's unsearchable if you're using SHX. Well, Autodesk did listen for a change. We now have PDFSHX. We can set that to 2. And what it's going to do is create a hidden text from the text objects that use SHX. So now these are going to be completely searchable in 24. So we're going to come in here. So, right, we're going to close this. We're going to close this. Here's PDFSHX of 0, right? And for those of you who have never seen one of these, this was the bomb 30 years ago. This was the bomb. Yes, it's still 2018 DWG format. Okay, so PDFSHX set to 0. I go Control F and I look for the word line. Okay, and nothing. Right? Dumb lines, arcs, and circles. Okay, here's PDFSHX set to 1. You'll see that there's a note here. But again, if I go search and I go line and I go next, there's nothing in this. Now, if I go to PDFSHX of 2, yeah, tablet DWG, I still have a plastic copy in my closet from last time that they came with the boxed product, which was, all right, sorry, not print, right? We'll go Control F, and I'm gonna look for the line, and look at this. Now I can search. And it will pick up everything that's lined in here, even though this is nothing more than geometry. There's hidden text under here that says line. Right, exciting. Very little, in case you're curious. So I printed all 3 of these PDFs from the exact same drawing. The only thing I did was change the variable when I saved them. And right, my 0 is 192. My PDFSHX of 1 is 247, and this is 292. So it will actually increase the file size somewhat, obviously, because it's creating 2 sets of text. But the question is, do you want searchable text or not? That's the big one for this. Christopher, I'm not going to argue with you. You think that's the most valuable thing? Although block replace, I do quite like. Most of the other functions, I don't know that I would get a whole lot of use. Has the default changed? Nope, default is still 1. You have to go manually change PDFSHX to 2 if you want it. Okay. And sheet set sheet set manager in the web has had some improvements. Okay, Michael. So hold on, and I'll come back to this. So here's where this is PDFSHX of 1, right? And if I look at comments, here's all the comments, right? If I come to 2 and I look at comments, there's no comments. So it gets rid of the comments and replaces that with hidden text underneath the actual text. Right, so I'm going to open up the big can of disappointment for this. So here's the list of improvements that have been made to the sheet set manager in the web. Automatic sheet set lock management. Okay, that's probably the big one here. Multiple sheet selection for publishing, you can do that. Ability to publish a multi-sheet PDF or individual now. Control over the PDF name and location. Option to overwrite existing files. Control over the e-transmit file name. Control over the location for new sheets, and the open sheet set button was added to the palette. Okay, you still don't have detail views. No, Jessica, SHX of 2 will still not allow you to edit SHX based text in the PDF because it's creating a hidden text underneath that is giving you the ability to search it. So there's really not a whole lot new here. Some individual things, but overall, you're still lacking things like your details, views. You're still lacking some of the things that we are used to. And then last couple of things, and then I'll cut you guys loose, is that we do have a 2D graphics engine improvement. So pan performance improved for drawing with raster images or wipeouts. Display performance is improved for trace background, markup import, markup assist, and view cube, and layout switching performance has had improvement. Mike, for first time in a long time, no set vars have been, or no system variables have been eliminated. The new ones have been covered in the slides as far as block replace, block placement, block replace activity insights. And then the 3D graphics engine, there have been some improvements made to the shaded fast and shaded with edges fast. You now have support for Map 3D and Civil 3D in there. Large coordinate system support. Those of you that have ever worked in Civil 3D know that we are never near 0, 0. And so those 3D graphics engines that they brought out last year break it horribly. Yeah, And selection, fence lasso and polygon, paper space support, point cloud support. So if you have really heavy point clouds, the 3D graphics engine will help. Dimming of XREFs and locked layers, and general stability, visual fidelity, and some performance improvements with the 3D side. All right. Barry, as far as I know, nothing changed. I will be honest with you, the 2024 release was more of a whimper. It was not a significant amount of changes. So we are actually over, and Lori, I know that we need to wrap this up, so we went over, and I do apologize. I knew that the insights was going to cause a lot of discussion. We may have a follow-up one on that.
Everyone, have a great day.
You too, guys. Talk to you later.